Wild Talents, by Charles Hoyfort, Chapter 30c. New York Times, June 18, 1880, Rochester, New York. A woman dead in her bed, and the bedpost hacked as if with a hatchet. It was known that nobody had entered this room, but something had killed this woman, leaving no sign of either entrance or exit. It was during a thunderstorm, and the woman had been killed by lightning. The man of one of our stories, J. Temple Thurston, alone in his room, and that a pictorial representation of his death by fire was enacting in a distant mind, and that into the phase of existence that is called real, stole the imaginary, scorching his body, but not his clothes, because so was pictured the burning of him, and that, hours later, there came into the mind of the sorcerer a fear that his imposition of what is called the imaginary upon what is called the physical bore quasi attributes of its origin, or was not realistic, or would be, in physical terms, unaccountable, and would attract attention, and that the fire in the house was visualized, and was realized, but by a visualization that in turn left some particulars unaccounted for. Lavinia Farrar was a woman of independent means. Hosts of men and women have been shot, or stabbed, or poisoned, because of their independent means. But that Mrs. Farrar was thought to death, or that upon her, too, out of the imaginary world in somebody's mind, stole a story, that it made of her, too, so fictional a being that of her death there is no explanation in ordinary, realistic terms. That here, too, there was an afterthought, or an after-picturization, which, by way of attempted explanation, realized a knife and blood on the floor, but overlooked other details that made this occurrence inexplicable in terms of ordinary murders, or that this woman had been stabbed in the heart, through in punctured clothes, because it was, with the neglect of everything else, the wound in the heart that had been visualized. The germ of this expression is in anybody's acceptance that a stigmatic girl can transfer a wound, as pictured in her mind, into appearance upon her body. The expression requires that there may be external, as well as personal, stigmatism. It seems to me to be as nearly unquestionable as anything in human affairs goes, that there have been stigmatic girls. There may have been cases of different kinds of personal stigmatism. There are emotions that are as intense as religious excitation. One of them is terror. The story of Isidor Fink is a story of the fear that preceded a murder. It could be that Fink's was a specific fear of somebody whom he had harmed, and not a general fear of the hold-ups that, at the time, were so prevalent in New York City. According to Police Commissioner Mulrooney, it was impossible, in terms of ordinary human experience, to explain this closed-room murder. Or Isidor Fink, at work in his laundry, and his mind upon somebody whom he had injured, and that his fears of revenge were picturing an assassination of which he was the victim, that his physical body was seized upon by his own picturization of himself, as shot by an enemy,